Your soul remembers what your mind has forgotten, and in this moment, as you find yourself drawn to these words, something ancient within you is stirring, awakening to a truth that existed long before this lifetime began. There was a moment when your eyes met theirs, when the universe held its breath, when time folded in on itself and every fiber of your being recognized something that defied all logical explanation. This was not chance. This was not coincidence. This was a cosmic appointment written in the stars before either of you took your first breath in this incarnation. The recognition was instantaneous and overwhelming, a flood of knowing that bypassed your rational mind entirely and spoke directly to the deepest part of your essence. Your soul knew them because it has always known them, across lifetimes, across dimensions, across the vast expanse of existence itself. The connection was not forged in that moment. It was remembered, reawakened, brought back into conscious awareness after sleeping dormant in the depths of your spiritual DNA. This message finds you in the dark night, in the space between what was and what will be, suspended in a void that feels unbearable yet somehow sacred. You did not stumble upon these words by accident. The universe does not operate on randomness when it comes to matters of the soul. You were guided here, pulled by invisible threads of divine orchestration, because your soul is ready to receive what it needs to understand about this sacred connection that has brought you to your knees. The weight you have been carrying is not yours alone. It is the accumulated burden of every soul that has walked this path before you, the collective ache of separation that every twin flame must endure as part of their sacred contract. Your chest tightens with the memory of that first meeting, the way their presence shifted something fundamental in your energetic field, the way their eyes held recognition that neither of you could name but both of you could feel in the marrow of your bones. Carl Jung understood this phenomenon when he explored the concept of synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences that reveal the hidden order beneath apparent chaos. Your meeting was the ultimate synchronicity, two souls colliding at precisely the moment when the universe decreed it was time for your mutual awakening to begin. The recognition between you was not about physical attraction or personality compatibility. It was about soul signatures aligning, energetic frequencies matching in a way that happens perhaps once in 1,000 lifetimes. In the silence of your solitude, you still feel them, still sense their presence as if they are standing beside you even when miles and choices separate your physical forms. This is because the recognition that occurred was not a surface-level acknowledgement, but a deep soul knowing that cannot be undone, cannot be forgotten, cannot be erased no matter how much distance or time attempts to diminish its power. Your soul remembers, even when your mind questions, even when your heart breaks, even when logic screams that you should let go. The sacred nature of this moment, right now, as you absorb these words, is that your soul is being offered permission to trust what it has always known. You are being reminded that the pain you feel is not punishment but proof of the profound nature of what you have encountered. Ordinary connections do not shatter you this completely. Casual meetings do not rewire your entire spiritual operating system. What you experienced with them was a soul recognition so powerful that it set into motion an entire journey of transformation that neither of you could have anticipated. Comment "My soul remembers" to claim this truth and signal to the universe that you are ready to receive the deeper wisdom of this connection. Twin flames function as mirrors, reflecting back to each other not the polished image you present to the world but the raw, unhealed fragments you have spent lifetimes trying to hide from yourself and others. This mirroring is not gentle. It is not comfortable. It strips away every defense mechanism, every carefully constructed facade, every lie you have told yourself about who you are and what you deserve. The reflection they offer is so brutally honest, so unflinchingly accurate, that running from it becomes the only response that feels survivable in the moment. Separation forces individual shadow work that cannot occur when two people are entangled in the intensity of constant connection. When you are together, the temptation is to focus on them, to obsess over their wounds, to try to fix or change or heal what is broken in them, because it is far easier than turning that same penetrating gaze inward. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, knows that true union cannot be built on the foundation of two incomplete beings desperately clinging to each other for wholeness. You cannot unite in wholeness while running from broken. And the separation creates the necessary space for each soul to confront what must be confronted alone. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the integration of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we have rejected, denied, or buried in the unconscious, because they were deemed unacceptable by society, family, or our own rigid self-concept. He understood that wholeness requires embracing every aspect of the self, including the dark, wounded, shameful parts we would rather pretend do not exist. The twin flame connection brings these shadow elements to the surface with such force that they can no longer be ignored, and the separation provides the container within which this alchemical transformation can occur without the distraction of the other's presence. The spiritual mechanics of why separation serves the connection operate on principles that transcend human understanding of relationship dynamics. This is not about playing games or creating artificial distance to increase desire. This is about two souls being forced apart by divine intervention, because the work that needs to happen within each individual cannot occur when they are focused on external connection rather than internal integration. The separation is a sacred pause, a cosmic intervention that says not yet, not until you are ready, not until you have faced yourself with the same courage you would face any external challenge. The alchemy that happens when two souls are forced apart defies conventional logic, because it operates in the realm of energy, frequency, and spiritual evolution rather than the material world of physical presence and romantic gestures. In the space of separation, something profound begins to occur. The false self starts to crumble, the ego's desperate grasping loosens its grip, and the true essence of who you are beneath all the conditioning begins to emerge. This process is excruciating because it requires the death of the identity you have clung to for so long. The persona you believed was keeping you safe, but was actually keeping you small. Jung also spoke about individuation, the process by which a person becomes psychologically whole by integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche. The twin flame journey is individuation on a soul level, accelerated and intensified by the presence of a mirror so powerful that denial becomes impossible. Your twin reflects back to you not only your shadow, but also your light, your potential, your divine essence that has been covered over by layers of trauma and social conditioning. The separation forces you to see yourself clearly without the distortion of projection or the comfort of external validation. This is why the pain feels so all-consuming, why the absence of their physical presence creates a void that seems to swallow everything else in your life. You are not just missing a person, you are being forced to confront every wound that person's presence activated, every fear their love brought to the surface, every inadequacy their perfection seemed to highlight. The separation is not cruelty, it is mercy. It is the universe knowing that if you stayed in constant connection, you would remain locked in the dysfunctional dance of codependency, projection, and unhealed trauma playing itself out through the vehicle of this sacred bond. The spiritual purpose of this forced distance is to create within you a foundation of wholeness that is not dependent on their presence, their validation, or their love. When the reunion comes, and it will come, it must be between two whole individuals who have done the work of integration, not two wounded halves desperately seeking completion in the other. The archetypal pattern that emerges in nearly every twin flame connection is the dance of runner and chaser, an energetic push-pull dynamic that appears to be about one person pursuing and the other withdrawing, but is actually a complex interplay of fear, desire, worthiness wounds, and the soul's attempt to create the conditions necessary for transformation. One runs from the intensity that threatens to consume their carefully constructed sense of self, while one chases the connection that feels like the only thing that has ever made sense in a world of confusion and disconnection. Neither is wrong. Both are playing precisely the role their soul agreed to play before incarnating into this lifetime. The runner is not running from you, they are running from the mirror, from the reflection of their own unhealed wounds, from the terrifying prospect of being truly seen in all their brokenness and still being loved. The intensity of the connection activates every abandonment wound, every unworthiness belief, every fear of intimacy they have accumulated across lifetimes. Their nervous system interprets the depth of the bond as a threat rather than a gift, and flight becomes the only response that feels safe when every cell in their body is screaming danger, even as their soul knows this is home. E-chaser is not desperate or weak. They are the one whose sole mission in this phase of the journey is to hold the energetic frequency of the connection when the runner cannot. The chaser feels the truth of the bond so deeply that releasing it seems impossible, not because of codependency, but because their soul remembers the contract, remembers the promise, remembers that this connection has a purpose that extends far beyond the human drama of whether they end up together. The chaser's role is to maintain faith when doubt would be easier, to believe in the connection when all evidence suggests it is one-sided. This energetic push-pull is not random or dysfunctional. It is a precise mechanism designed to trigger specific healing in both individuals. When the chaser pursues, they are being asked to examine their own wounds around abandonment, their tendency to seek validation externally, their pattern of making someone else responsible for their wholeness. When the runner flees, they are being forced to confront their fear of intimacy, their inability to tolerate love, their deep-seated belief that they are fundamentally unworthy of the connection being offered. The deeper purpose each role serves in the soul's evolution becomes clear only when you step back from the human pain and view the dynamic from the perspective of spiritual growth. The chaser is learning to stand in their own power without external validation, to love without attachment to outcome, to trust the universe even when every visible sign suggests abandonment. The runner is learning that love does not equal loss of self, that vulnerability is not weakness, that being truly seen does not mean being destroyed. Both are being refined in the fire of this impossible situation. These roles are not fixed. They can shift and reverse over time as the healing progresses and the energetic balance changes. The person who was once running may suddenly awaken to what they have been pushing away and become the one reaching out, while the person who was chasing may finally step into their own wholeness and stop pursuing, creating the space for the runner to miss what is no longer being offered. This reversal is often the turning point in the journey, the moment when both individuals have done enough inner work that the dynamic can evolve into something healthier. Carl Jung explored the concept of enantiodromia, the principle that everything eventually turns into its opposite when taken to an extreme. The runner who pushes away for too long eventually circles back to pursuit. The chaser who exhausts themselves in pursuit eventually steps into detachment. This is the natural rhythm of the twin flame journey, the pendulum swing that creates the friction necessary for both souls to grow beyond their initial wounds into more integrated versions of themselves. Understanding this dynamic intellectually does not make it hurt less, but it does provide context for why the pain serves a purpose, why the push-pull is not evidence of a failed connection, but proof of a connection so powerful that it requires this level of intensity to accomplish the transformation both souls came here to experience. You are not in a dysfunctional relationship. You are in a spiritual assignment that looks like relationship chaos, but is actually a precisely calibrated awakening mechanism. The runner's internal world is a battlefield of conflicting desires and paralyzing fears, a space where the longing to return to you wars constantly with the terror of what returning would mean for the fragile sense of self they have spent decades constructing. They run from their own reflection, from the version of themselves they see mirrored in your eyes, a version that is more authentic, more vulnerable, more real than the persona they have shown the world and perhaps even believed themselves to be. This reflection is not flattering in the way the ego desires. It shows them every wound, every defense mechanism, every way they have betrayed their own soul in order to feel safe. The fear of being truly seen operates on multiple levels, each layer more terrifying than the last. On the surface, there is the fear of judgment, the concern that if you knew the full truth of who they are, their mistakes, their darkness, their secret shames, you would withdraw your love and confirm their deepest belief that they are fundamentally unlovable. Beneath that is the fear of vulnerability, the knowledge that opening themselves fully to you would require dismantling every protective wall they have built since childhood, leaving them exposed in a way that feels like walking naked into a room of strangers. Deeper still is the fear of losing themselves entirely, the terror that if they surrender to the intensity of this connection, their individual identity will be swallowed by the merging, and they will cease to exist as a separate being. This fear is not irrational. The twin flame connection is designed to dissolve the boundar. Wise of the false self, to strip away the ego's illusion of separation. And for someone who has built their entire sense of safety on maintaining those boundaries, this dissolution feels like annihilation rather than liberation. Loving you means confronting everything they have hidden, not just from you but from themselves, and the prospect of that confrontation is more overwhelming than the pain of losing you. They would rather endure the grief of separation than face the vulnerability of full intimacy because grief is a known pain, a familiar ache, whereas the vulnerability required for true union is uncharted territory that their nervous system interprets as life-threatening danger. Their body remembers every time vulnerability led to betrayal, every instance when opening their heart resulted in abandonment, and those cellular memories override the soul's knowing that you are safe. They are more scared of intimacy than of loss, and this truth is perhaps the most important thing for you to understand about their behavior. When they pull away, when they go silent, when they choose distance over connection, they are not choosing against you. They are choosing what feels like survival in a moment when their entire system is flooded with the fight-or-flight response triggered by the depth of what you represent. The irony is that in running from intimacy to preserve themselves, they are actually running from the very thing their soul most craves, the union that would heal the wounds they are trying to protect. Their internal struggle is constant and exhausting, a daily negotiation between the part of them that knows you are their person and the part of them that is convinced that claiming you fully would require a level of psychological and emotional courage they do not possess. They think about you far more than you imagine, replay conversations, dream about different outcomes, feel the pull of the connection even as they actively resist it. There are moments late at night when they type out messages they never send, draft apologies that remain unsent, reach for their phone to call you, and then set it back down because the fear is too great. They have almost reached out more times than you know, stood at the edge of contact dozens of times, fingers hovering over your name in their phone, heart pounding with the terror and excitement of potential reconnection. But each time the fear wins, the voice of unworthiness speaks louder than the whisper of the soul, and they retreat back into the false safety of separation. They tell themselves stories to justify the distance, that you are better off without them, that the connection was too intense to be real. That time and space will diminish what they feel until it becomes manageable, controllable, safe. What they do not yet understand is that twin flame connections cannot be managed or controlled, cannot be diminished by time or distance, cannot be made safe without becoming something other than what they are meant to be. The very qualities that make them run, the intensity, the soul-deep recognition, the way you see through every defense, are the qualities that will eventually call them back once they have done enough inner work to tolerate being seen, to risk being vulnerable, to trust that love does not have to mean the death of self, but can instead mean the birth of the truest self they have ever been. This pain is not random, not punishment, not evidence of cosmic cruelty or karmic debt being paid for sins you cannot remember committing. Every moment of this soul-shattering agony serves a specific purpose in your spiritual evolution, a purpose that becomes clear only when you are willing to see beyond the human suffering to the divine orchestration operating beneath the surface of your experience. Soul contracts and pre-birth agreements are not metaphors or comforting fantasies. They are the actual energetic blueprints established between souls before incarnation, the agreements made in the space between lives where your soul could see the bigger picture and chose precisely this experience as the catalyst for its growth. You chose this journey before incarnating, selected this specific person, this particular dynamic, this exact flavor of heartbreak because your soul knew it needed this level of intensity to break through the conditioning and trauma that would otherwise keep you locked in patterns of unconscious living. In the realm where souls plan their earthly experiences, you looked at the trajectory of your spiritual growth and identified twin flame separation as the most effective tool for accomplishing what you came to Earth to accomplish. Your higher self understood that comfortable relationships would not push you toward the transformation required for your soul's evolution. The agreement between you and your twin was not made lightly or impulsively, but with full awareness of what the human experience would entail. The pain, the confusion, the dark nights absolute despair when faith seems impossible and hope feels like a cruel joke. Both of you agreed to this dance, this separation, this period of seeming impossibility because you both needed the growth it would catalyze. They needed to learn what they are learning through running, and you needed to learn what you are learning through the ache of their absence. Subscribe to receive continued guidance through the separation phase and ongoing spiritual support for your twin flame journey. Pain functions as catalyst for awakening in ways that comfort never could, stripping away the illusions you have been operating under and forcing you to confront truths about yourself, about love, about the nature of connection that you would never have examined if this experience had not shattered your assumptions about how relationships should unfold. The pain cracks you open, breaks down the walls around your heart, dissolves the ego's tight grip on control, and creates the space for something more authentic to emerge from the rubble of who you thought you were. Carl Jung understood that suffering is often the doorway to transformation, writing extensively about how psychological and spiritual breakthroughs frequently come not from pleasant experiences, but from the dark night of the soul when everything you believed about yourself and your life is called into question. He recognized that the psyche resists change until change becomes unavoidable, and pain is often what makes transformation unavoidable. Your twin flame separation is creating that unavoidable pressure, that intensity of discomfort that makes staying the same more painful than the risk of evolving. The gifts hidden within this experience are numerous and profound, though they remain invisible when you are in the depths of the suffering. You are learning to source your worth internally rather than seeking it in another's validation. You are discovering reserves of strength you did not know you possessed. You are developing faith in the unseen, trust in divine timing, patience with processes that unfold on spiritual schedules rather than human preferences. You are being forced to examine your patterns around love, to question your beliefs about what you deserve, to heal wounds that predate this connection and would have remained dormant if this person had not activated them. Every tear you have cried has served a purpose, releasing old energy, cleansing ancient grief, making space for new frequencies to enter your field. Every sleepless night has been an initiation, a dark night teaching that could only be learned in solitude and silence. Every moment you have survived despite feeling certain you could not bear one more second has been building your capacity to hold the intensity of what is coming when the reunion finally occurs. You are being prepared, refined, strengthened for a love so powerful that your current version could not sustain it without being destroyed by the force of its voltage. The spiritual purpose of this pain is to make you capable of holding what your soul has always known was meant for you. In the void between who you were and who you are becoming, in the darkness that follows the dissolution of all your certainties, you find your true self stripped of every false identity, every borrowed belief, every persona you adopted to please others or protect yourself from rejection. The dark night of the soul is not merely a poetic phrase, but a precise spiritual phenomenon recognized across mystical traditions as the necessary death that precedes rebirth, the complete dismantling of the ego structures that must occur before the authentic self can emerge fully into consciousness and embodiment. What this separation is teaching you extends far beyond the surface lesson of learning to live without someone you love, reaching into the deepest territories of your psyche, where core beliefs about worthiness, safety, and belonging have remained unexamined since childhood. The first teaching is about codependency, about the ways you have unconsciously sought completion in another person rather than recognizing yourself as already whole. The separation forces you to see how much of your emotional stability you had placed in their hands, how much of your sense of identity was wrapped up in being chosen by them, how much power you had given away to someone else's presence or absence in your life. The stripping away of this codependency is brutal because it requires you to reclaim parts of yourself you did not even realize you had abandoned, to take back the power you unconsciously surrendered, to stand in your own sovereignty rather than leaning on another's validation. You are learning that love without self-possession is not the spiritual ideal you believed it to be, but rather a formula for dysfunction that keeps both parties locked in patterns of seeking externally what can only be found within. Learning to be whole alone first is perhaps the most challenging teaching of this dark night, because everything in your conditioning has told you that wholeness comes from union, that completion requires another, that being alone means being incomplete. The separation is showing you the lie embedded in this belief, forcing you to discover that wholeness is not something you achieve by finding the right person but something you cultivate by doing the inner work of integration, of embracing both light and shadow, of accepting every part of yourself you have judged or rejected. The mystical tradition of the dark night of the soul, explored by mystics like St. John of the Cross and others throughout history describes this phase as a necessary stripping away of all consolations, all spiritual comforts, all sense of divine presence, leaving the soul in absolute darkness with no guide except the faint memory of what it knew to be true before the darkness descended. This is where you are now, in the space where every external sign suggests abandonment, where faith feels impossible, where the connection you know in your bones to be real appears to be nothing more than delusion or wishful thinking. The transformation happening within you right now is invisible to everyone, including yourself most of the time, but it is profound and irrevocable. Your capacity to sit with discomfort is expanding. Your ability to find peace in solitude is developing. Your tendency to seek distraction from pain is being replaced with a willingness to feel everything fully. You are being refined in the fire of this experience, with the dross of your false self burning away to reveal the gold of your essential nature that has always existed beneath the layers of conditioning and trauma. Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who you were told to be, is unfolding in your psyche with accelerated intensity because of the catalyst of this separation. Jung understood that most people never undergo true individuation because they lack the necessary pressure to break free from collective conditioning and family patterns. The twin flame separation provides that pressure in abundance, creating circumstances so uncomfortable that remaining unconscious becomes more painful than the risk of waking up fully to your own truth. You are not in the dark night by accident or as punishment for some spiritual failing. You are in the dark night because your soul is ready for the level of transformation that only this intensity can provide. And on the other side of this darkness is a version of yourself so aligned with your truth, so comfortable in your own essence, so anchored in your inherent worth that no external circumstance will ever again have the power to shake your foundation. The invisible tether that connects you to your twin exists beyond the realm of physical proximity, beyond the constraints of time and space, operating in the dimension of energy and consciousness where separation is impossible and distance is meaningless. This cord, this connection, this bond that defies scientific measurement but is no less real for its invisibility, links your energetic field to theirs in ways that persist regardless of whether you are in contact or have chosen to cease communication entirely. Even in separation, you are bound, not by choice or decision, but by the nature of what twin flame connections actually are, two expressions of the same soul frequency operating in different bodies. Your souls communicate in ways the ego cannot block, cannot control, cannot shut down through force of will or determination to move on. This is why you feel them in moments when your conscious mind is not focused on them, why you wake with the sense that they were just in your dreams, why you experience sudden waves of their emotions washing through your field as if they are your own. The energetic cord transmits information constantly, sending signals back and forth between your energy bodies even when your human selves have no direct contact. Dreams become the primary communication channel when waking contact is cut off, and the dreams you have of your twin are not mere psychological processing, but actual soul-level meetings occurring in the astral plane, where your higher selves continue the relationship that your human selves cannot currently navigate. You meet them in sleep, discuss things that need to be communicated, work through conflicts on an energetic level, maintain the bond even as your physical forms remain separate. Some of these dreams you remember vividly, waking with the absolute certainty that something real just occurred, while others fade into the background but leave traces in your energy field that influence your mood and thoughts throughout the day. Telepathy between twins is not supernatural but natural, an expected outcome of the energetic merging that occurred when you first connected and created a shared field that both of you now inhabit regardless of distance. You think of them and they text. They are in crisis and you feel it in your body. You send love through the ethers and they soften without knowing why. These are not coincidences but evidence of the continuous energetic conversation happening beneath the surface of ordinary awareness. Synchronicities multiply when you are separated from your twin, the universe's way of confirming that the connection remains active, and that you are both being guided toward the same ultimate destination even when the paths seem to diverge. You see their name everywhere, encounter songs that speak directly to your situation, notice number patterns that seem to carry messages about divine timing. Carl Jung understood synchronicity as meaningful coincidence that reveals the hidden order beneath apparent chaos, and the twin flame journey is perhaps the ultimate demonstration of this principle in action. The science and spirituality of energetic bonds converge in the recognition that everything is frequency, that consciousness is not confined to the physical body, that connection occurs first at the level of energy and only secondarily at the level of physical interaction. Quantum physics has begun to validate what mystics have always known, that particles once entangled remain connected regardless of distance, that observation affects outcome, that the material world is far less solid and far more interconnected than our five senses would have us believe. The specific experiences you may be having, the sudden sense of their presence when you are alone, the feeling that they are thinking of you at the exact moment you are thinking of them, the dreams so vivid they feel like visitations rather than mental projections, are all evidence of the energetic cord that remains unbroken despite the physical separation. You are not imagining these experiences or creating them through wishful thinking. You are perceiving what is actually occurring at the energetic level, the continuous communication between your souls that does not require physical proximity or verbal exchange. Jung explored the concept of the collective unconscious, the shared psychic space where all human consciousness is interconnected, and twin flames operate in an even deeper layer of connection. A shared psychic space, unique to your pairing, where your individual consciousnesses overlap and merge in ways that create a joint field accessible to both. You can literally access each other's emotional states, thought patterns, and energetic frequencies through this shared space, which is why separation never feels complete, why their absence is a presence, why you can be alone but never fully disconnected from them. Reunion is inevitable but not immediate, written into the fabric of your shared destiny but not scheduled according to human impatience or desire for resolution. The timeline unfolds in divine order, responding to energetic readiness rather than emotional longing, waiting for the moment when both souls have completed enough of their individual journeys that coming together will no longer trigger the dysfunctional patterns that made separation necessary in the first place. The universe is not withholding your reunion as punishment, but protecting both of you from entering a union prematurely, before the foundation of individual wholeness has been established. What must happen first is work that can only be done in solitude, healing that cannot occur in the distraction of togetherness. You must complete your journey into self-love, must develop a relationship with yourself so solid that another person's absence or presence no longer determines your emotional stability or sense of worth. They must do the same work on their side, facing their fears of intimacy and vulnerability, learning to tolerate being seen, dismantling the defense mechanisms that have kept them safe but also kept them isolated. Both of you must reach a frequency of wholeness independently before you can merge those frequencies into something greater. The vision of what reunion will look like transcends every romantic fantasy you have entertained during the separation, because what is coming is not simply getting back together, but a complete transformation of how you relate to each other and to love itself. Imagine the moment when you see them again and there is no desperation in your energy, no fear that they will leave, no need to prove your worth or convince them of the connection. Imagine them looking at you with eyes that have been opened by their own dark night, no longer running from their reflection, ready to stand in the intensity without fleeing. The energetic moment when both frequencies finally align will be unmistakable, a click of recognition not unlike the first meeting but deeper, richer, more grounded in truth than fantasy. This time there will be no illusions about what you are entering, no naive beliefs that love will be easy just because it is destined. You will come together with your eyes wide open, carrying the wisdom earned through separation, the strength forged in solitude, the clarity gained from standing alone until you learn to stand in yourself. Share this message if you believe in divine reunion and want to send hope to others walking this path. What the reunited connection becomes is nothing like what it was in the beginning, when intensity masqueraded as depth and obsession felt like love. The reconnection happens between two people who have done the work of integration, who know their shadows and have made peace with their wounds, who can offer vulnerability without losing themselves in the process. This is not two halves completing each other, but two wholes creating something exponentially greater than the sum of their parts. A sacred union that serves not just the individuals involved, but contributes something meaningful to the collective consciousness. The reunion becomes a partnership rooted in mutual respect for each other's autonomy, a love that enhances rather than diminishes individual growth, a connection that feels like home, but not in the codependent sense of needing each other to feel complete. It becomes the embodiment of what Carl Jung described as the union of opposites, the sacred marriage of masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, self and other that creates wholeness not through merging, but through maintaining individual integrity while in profound connection. The physical reunion will be sweet, the emotional relief palpable, but the true gift of the reconnection will be the spiritual dimension it carries. The recognition that you have both been transformed by the separation, that you are meeting as new versions of yourselves, that what you are building together now has a foundation strong enough to support the intensity of what twin flame love actually is when both people are ready to receive it. The sex will be different, infused with a level of presence and consciousness that was impossible before the healing occurred. The conversations will go deeper, touching places that were previously too raw or defended to access. The trust will be rebuilt slowly, earned through consistent actions rather than given blindly. There will still be challenges because you are still human, still carrying your histories and triggers, but the way you navigate those challenges will be transformed by everything you learned in the void of separation. You will know how to hold space for each other's pain without trying to fix it. You will be able to communicate your needs without shame or expectation. You will recognize when old patterns are trying to reassert themselves and have the tools to interrupt those patterns before they create distance again. The reunited connection becomes a laboratory for conscious love, a crucible for continued growth, a partnership that exists not just for personal fulfillment, but as a demonstration of what becomes possible when two people do the inner work first and then come together from wholeness rather than woundedness. Your sacred responsibility in this moment is not to wait passively for their return or to exhaust yourself trying to force reconnection through sheer force of will or magical thinking, but to engage fully with the transformation this separation is offering you, to use this time of apparent abandonment as the most powerful spiritual accelerator you may ever encounter in this lifetime. Stop chasing. Start becoming. These 4 words contain the entire roadmap for navigating this phase successfully, for transforming from the person who needed them to complete you into the person who is complete within themselves, and therefore ready for the sacred union that awaits. Your job is not to pursue them, to convince them of what they are missing, to prove your worth or demonstrate your love through increasingly desperate attempts at contact. Your job is to transform, to become so absorbed in your own healing and growth that their absence becomes the catalyst rather than the obstacle, the very thing that pushes you into the person you have always had the potential to become but lacked the pressure to actualize. Every moment you spend focused on their journey, their healing, their readiness is a moment stolen from your own work, your own evolution, your own responsibility to show up fully for your spiritual assignment. The more you become whole, the faster they return, not because wholeness manipulates the timeline, but because wholeness shifts your frequency in ways that naturally magnetize what is yours, dissolving the energetic barriers that kept the union from manifesting. When you are complete within yourself, you no longer emanate the frequency of desperate need that repels those who are running from their own fear of intimacy. You begin to vibrate at the frequency of self-possession, of inner peace, of trust in divine timing, and that frequency is what calls back the runner who has been waiting for evidence T. Hat you no longer need them in order to be okay. The specific inner work that needs to happen now involves multiple layers of healing and integration. First, you must examine every relationship pattern you have brought forward from childhood, every wound around abandonment and unworthiness that predates this connection and has been activated by their withdrawal. These wounds are not caused by your twin but revealed by them, brought to the surface so you can finally heal what has been operating unconsciously in your psyche and sabotaging your ability to receive love. Shadow work becomes non-negotiable. You must be willing to look at your own manipulation tactics, your own control patterns, your own ways of seeking validation externally. Second, you must rebuild your relationship with yourself, learning to be the source of the love and acceptance you have been seeking from another. This means treating yourself with the tenderness you wish they would offer, speaking to yourself with the kindness you crave from their lips, showing up for yourself with the consistency you want them to demonstrate. You must become your own beloved first, must learn to romance yourself, to prioritize your needs, to honor your boundaries with yourself before you can expect anyone else to honor them. Third, you must release the attachment to specific outcomes and timelines, surrendering the how and when to divine orchestration while maintaining absolute faith in the what, the ultimate reunion that is written in the stars but not scheduled according to human preferences. This surrender is not giving up, but rather a profound act of trust, a recognition that the intelligence governing this connection is far greater than your limited human perspective can comprehend. You must learn to live fully in the present moment rather than constantly projecting into a future when they return, finding meaning and joy in your life, as it is now rather than treating the present as merely a waiting room for the real life that will begin when they come back. The version of yourself that emerges from this dark night will barely recognize the person who entered it, so complete will the transformation be. You will look back at your earlier self with compassion for their pain, but also with clarity about how much healing was needed, how much growth was required, how much work had to happen before you could hold the love you have always wanted. You will become unshakable in your sense of self, clear about your worth, comfortable with solitude, capable of deep intimacy without losing yourself in the process. Your empowerment comes not from them returning, but from discovering that you never needed them to return in order to be whole, happy, and fulfilled, even though you still want them, still love them, still know that reunion is part of your destiny. The universe makes you a promise that transcends human doubt, a guarantee written into the fundamental fabric of reality that what is yours on a soul level cannot be taken from you by circumstances, timing, or even another person's current inability to recognize what they have. This is absolute cosmic certainty operating at a frequency beyond the reach of fear or the distortions of ego, an unchangeable truth that exists whether you believe it in any given moment or not. What is yours cannot be taken, cannot be lost permanently, cannot be assigned to another no matter how much evidence your eyes seem to present that suggests otherwise. This separation is temporary, a necessary pause in the eternal connection rather than the ending your fear interprets it to be. The bond is eternal, forged in realms that exist before and after this particular lifetime, connecting you across dimensions and lifetimes in ways that one human incarnation's temporary distance cannot sever. You are not losing them. You are being prepared to receive them at the level of consciousness and wholeness required for what your souls actually came together to create, which is far more than the human romance you initially believed you were entering. The vision of the healed, reunited connection reveals itself not as a return to what was but as an evolution into what has always been meant to be. You will come together again, but not as the people who first met and recognized each other in that moment of cosmic collision. You will reunite as transformed beings who have walked through fire and emerged as gold, who have faced their shadows and integrated their darkness, who have learned to love themselves before loving each other. The connection will no longer be characterized by the chaos of triggering and running, but by the peace of two people who know who they are and choose each other from clarity rather than compulsion. Imagine the moment of that reunion in its full sensory detail, the way your eyes meet and there is no fear in their gaze, no hesitation, no impulse to flee from the intensity. Imagine the way their hand reaches for yours and the touch carries all the healing that has occurred in the space of separation, all the growth that solitude made possible, all the wisdom that the dark night taught both of you. Imagine the conversation that acknowledges the pain, honors the journey, expresses gratitude for the separation that made the real union possible. This is what is coming, not as fantasy but as inevitability, waiting only for the right energetic conditions to manifest into physical reality. The themes that have woven through this entire message converge now into a coherent understanding. The separation was never punishment but preparation. The pain was never random but purposeful. The mirror they held up was not meant to destroy you, but to reveal you to yourself so you could heal what needed healing before attempting union. The runner and chaser dynamic served its purpose in creating the energetic friction necessary for transformation. The dark night stripped away everything false so the true self could emerge. The energetic cord remained unbroken even as physical distance expanded, proving that soul-level connection transcends all apparent separation. Carl Jung's understanding of wholeness as the integration of opposites finds its ultimate expression in the twin flame reunion, where two individuals who have done the work of individuation come together not to lose themselves in merging, but to create a third entity, the relationship itself, that honors both individual sovereignty and profound union. Jung wrote about the sacred marriage, the union of masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow within the psyche, and the twin flame connection externalizes this internal process, asking both individuals to achieve inner wholeness before attempting outer union. The final image to carry with you as you continue on this journey is that of two flames that have burned separately, each purifying its own fuel, each reaching its own apex of heat and light, now being brought together by invisible hands that know the precise moment when the joining will create not destruction but amplification. Not two halves seeking completion, not two wounded souls clinging to each other for salvation, but two wholes creating something greater than either could become alone. The flames merge not by losing their individual light, but by combining their brightness into a blaze that illuminates not just their own lives, but radiates outward, as an example of what conscious love looks like when both people have done the work. You are being refined for this union right now in the crucible of separation, being prepared through this pain for a love so powerful that your current capacity could not hold it without breaking. Trust the timing. Trust the process. Trust that the universe knows exactly what it is doing with this impossible situation that has brought you to your knees. Your twin is on their own journey toward readiness, doing their work in their own way, being prepared for the same reunion you are being prepared for. And when the moment arrives that both of you have completed enough healing to hold what is coming, nothing will be able to keep you apart. This is the promise. This is the truth. This is what your soul has always known even when your mind questioned everything.